brother was one in a million, literally. When he was 15 months old, he was diagnosed with a very rare condition. It was a condition that meant his skin could not protect or heal itself from exposure to ultraviolet light, like the light from the sun. Every exposure to sunlight was killing him. His doctors told my family he wouldn't live to see his 5th birthday. If they had been right, I never would have met him. I was born into a world where I always knew my brother was dying. I always knew the sun was very dangerous. And our family lived in a strange space where life involved tragedy and grief, and yet every moment was precious and full of hope. When I was little, I didn't know that we weren't normal. I knew my brother was different, but it didn't occur to me to wonder why we rarely spent summer days out at the beach, or why we had windows with curtains that always stayed closed. It was normal to hang out in hospitals, riding wheelchairs up and down the children's ward, and just laughing and playing and being a kid while my brother was dying. There were lots of days in hospitals, because even though we did so much to protect him from light, it's everywhere. Every day in school he was exposed, not just to sunlight through open windows, but directly overhead from the fluorescent globes still used in schools today. Even in hospital, those overhead lights were killing him faster. With every exposure led to skin damage, which led to skin cancer, which led to malignant tumours and surgery and skin grafts. He'd have 2 wounds for every fix because they'd take healthy skin from less sun-exposed areas of his body to repair damage to his face and his hands. In time, even his eyesight was affected, and he grew increasingly blind. In time, he had less and less of his body, and in time, less and less of his mind. Now, I don't tell you this story to garner sympathy or even to raise awareness for the condition that killed my brother. I tell you this because I want you to know that I've known tragedy. I've known living a life that doesn't seem fair. I've known losing someone precious, whose life, short and full of hardship, mattered. That's what I'm here to talk about today, about why all of this matters. How the bad stuff, the tragic stuff, the heartbreaking stuff that we face in our lives matters. And, more importantly, how even when we're living it, we can choose to trust that the moments we have in our lives, the good and the bad, are vital. That even in our darkest days, when we fear the sun may never rise again, we can hope. And that hope for the sun keeps us alive. You see, my brother didn't live in darkness. Yes, we avoided exposing his skin to ultraviolet light, but as we grew up, we'd go out riding our bikes all over the neighbourhood. He'd be covered, head to toe, with gloves and even a helmet and visor that shielded his face from the light. Because life isn't dark rooms alone. Life is out there, with others, to be lived fully. We hoped for the light. But as his condition progressed, and as I got older, it became harder to keep laughing and playing and being a kid while he was dying. So much of my life revolved around my brother and his needs that by the time I was going through my own mental health challenges in high school, I felt invisible. My brother's life mattered so much to everyone that I started to think my life didn't matter at all. I didn't know it at the time, but I was spiralling so deep into bipolar disorder that the highs and lows could be dangerous. Because I didn't think my life mattered, I stopped looking forward to the future. I started skipping school. I started smoking and stealing and drinking. I started disconnecting from people. And the more I did all those things, the less I felt my life mattered. The less I believed my life mattered, the more I thought I was a burden on my family. I started to think that the world would be better off without me. In the darkest moment of that depression, I sat with my back wedged against my bedroom door. It was late afternoon, but the curtains were closed against the sun and the overhead light stayed off. I sat in the dark and held a long, sharp carving knife in my hands. I sat there, contemplating that blade and listening to my family in the next room. It was one of those most ordinary, extraordinary moments. Outside the bubble of this teenage girl about to kill herself, the world kept turning. My brother was still dying. My family was still living their lives as they always had. My mother and sister were arguing with each other in the next room. I don't remember what they were fighting about, but I remember thinking that my sister was being selfish, because how can she make it all about her when our brother is dying? Now, as you've already guessed by my standing on the stage before you, I didn't take my life that day. Because as I stood there cradling the knife in my hands, I started to get angry. The thing my mother and sister were arguing about seemed so insignificant that I just could not fathom how that could possibly be more important to them than someone dying. How it could be more important to them than me dying. Because although they didn't know it, I was dying. I had been heartbeats away from taking my life. I was closer to my death in that moment than my brother had been all the years of his life up to that point. I didn't die that day, and nor did my brother. In fact, we would both go on to live years after. Every year, his condition led to more and more skin cancer that ravaged his body. Despite surgery and skin graft and medicine, we couldn't outrun the battle. My brother lived to be 27 years of age. He survived 22 years longer than any of his doctors ever imagined for him when he was first diagnosed. He lived to make friends, to finish school, to get his driver's license, to spread awareness for his ultra-rare condition, to meet his first niece, to change people's lives. The thing my brother's life taught me was that it all matters. I am who I am because of him. If anything at all had been different, this would not be my life. Now, I'm not saying my life is phenomenal. I'm not a millionaire. I don't have a fancy house or the newest car. No, if anything, some people would say my life is nothing. I'm divorced, a single mother of 2 special needs children, living with chronic illness, writing books hardly anyone buys. But I love my life. I value my life. You see, I've learned to see the blessings in everything, even the bad stuff. That is the hopefulness I want you to sit in right now. Bad things happen. Sometimes they're the little things, like stubbing our toe or getting stuck at a red light when we're already running late. Sometimes they're the big things, like riots or terrorist attacks or pandemics that take hundreds of thousands of lives. Sometimes they're the precious things, like losing the people we love, but they matter. It's so easy to sit in our sadness or heartache or grief or pain. Sometimes it's easy to feel anger or frustration or hate, and all of those feelings are valid, but they don't really help us live our lives. They certainly don't help us live happy lives full of light. I believe we can change the way we look at life when things go wrong. With the power of positive framing, we can ask ourselves in every moment, what comes after? How can my life be transformed by this? Why is this pain important? What is it teaching me? When my brother died, I could have raged at the unfairness of it all, at the unjustness of his life and the life I'd endured because of it. Instead, I sat there in that moment feeling his loss, and I could see the blessings. I could see how his life had been a remarkable gift, and how his death, bittersweet, was also a gift. I could see the wonderful life I could go on to live after him, blessed because I'd known him. I understood it was important to give my family and the people I love my whole heart, because every moment with them is precious. I learned that our lives matter. When my marriage failed, I could have sat in the bitterness and betrayal of an unfaithful husband. I could have resented him and all the handful of years we'd had together. Instead, I saw an opportunity for us both to find greater happiness. The pain of that failure was important because it taught me never to settle for comfortable when I can dance outside of my comfort zone. I learned that I didn't want a loveless marriage, and I didn't want a loveless marriage to be the example we set for our children. When my son was diagnosed with autism, I could have wallowed in the unfairness of a child who, like my brother, would always be different. I could have been angry or frustrated about how much harder that meant everything would be in our lives. Instead, I let myself see how much my son's life matters, how I could become his greatest teacher, supporter, and champion. I understood it was important to let myself grieve for the idea of the perfect child I'd once had in my head, because in that grief, I'd see the real wonder, the miracle of the child I had. And I could learn that he needed me to show him his remarkable strengths, just as raising him would help me see mine. When we are in our darkest moments, we must look for the light. We must ask ourselves, what comes after? How can my life be transformed by this? Why is this pain important? What is it teaching me? This mindset shift transforms our experience in a heartbeat, but it requires a degree of faith. Now, when I say faith, I'm not talking about religion. I'm talking about trusting that our lives are meaningful. I'm talking about trusting that we are meant to become something more than we are right now. I'm talking about having faith that our lives matter. The faith in this hopefulness gives us power. It gives us resilience. It gives us the opportunity to hold on to happiness when all we want to do is cry. It gives us the courage to stay, to fight, when all we want to do is run. It gives us the compassion to forgive when we're desperately clinging to blame. It gives us the strength to survive. And it's not easy, believe me. I've lived from the day I was born knowing life is not fair, knowing the people I love most are dying, knowing light can be dangerous. But we live in the light, and sometimes finding it means looking for it in the darkness.